Welcome, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here, and we're going to be starting Strategic Command American Civil War, made by my friends Bill and Herbert. Really good game. Now, well, if you're new here, before we get into this, if you're new here, please subscribe. Love to see you around more often. I've been reluctant to play American Civil War games on my channel because of, shall we say, a lot of controversy around them, especially if you really do look sort of deep into the issues. And we very well may get into that in time here, but this is going to be mostly opening moves and setting up this game. So let's continue into this. We're going to be playing the Manassas to Appomattox campaign here. You can start earlier, back in April. This is in July, after the first major land battle. One of the reasons I'm reluctant to play is because I'm going to be playing the Confederates, the bad guys. Yes, I'm sitting here not speaking because I don't know how to put this. I know how the Union can win the war, okay? That because they won. For multiple reasons and multiple ways. What interests me is the sort of what ifs. Could the Confederacy have won? And the answer, in my opinion, is yes, but a lot deeper in it as to why I think so, but maybe not likely winning but is yes. So we're going to be playing the Confederacy. I'm going to stick with these counter styles. You can do that. I'm torn between various reasons to do the difference, but we're going to be going with this just so that you know you can play it either side. I quickly recognize the traditional sort of board top counters better, but maybe for visual reasons and viewers not used to that style of counters like this better, and so we're going to be playing this. Okay. With a lot of these games, I really do think opening moves are critical, that can set the long-term tone of it. But as so I actually did read parts of the manual and strategy guide, this is designed to be a long game, a strategic game, a game of attrition. So may not be quite as critical as I think. Okay, Mr. President, to avoid federal blockade, our ports have begun importing 50 MPP per turn. That's the I forget what their version of these things cost are called, but military production points, I don't know, worth of copper, gunpowder, and other essential materials from Mexico via an overland route into Texas. This trade will continue as long as you maintain control of Laredo, but will cease if Mexico enters the war against us. So we need to control Laredo down there. Mr. President, in light of the great industrial importance of Virginia's foundries, to have the south, Virginia's have to the south, right? The decision has been made to move the government to the city of Richmond, capital as it were, located less than 100 miles from Washington, D.C. You will receive 500 fighting spirit points each turn that you hold Richmond. Fighting points are the way you more or less decisively win the war, by reducing the enemy. Okay. Let's sort of zoom out to this. This is the shape of our battlefield here. I really don't think the decision at this point in the war, this is post-Appomattox, and from playing this, we are not going to be able to fight a big grand battle like, not post-Appomattox post-Manassas. Sorry if I've been saying Appomattox. It's Appomattox ends the Civil War. Sorry. Post-Manassas. That's also known as Bull Run or First Bull Run. Post-Battle of Manassas. Battle of Manassas was a complete and total rout for the Union Army. The Confederacy probably could have pushed effectively into the capital on that day or that evening if they really had pushed and tried. With the mechanics of this game, that at this point is not possible. So some big rush by the Confederates to storm into Washington, D.C. just is not possible or practical in this game at this point. So I think we're going to stick with a defensive strategy in the Northeast here. Attack when and where advisable. I think strategically, the importance of the Mississippi is very great to the Confederacy. And so we're going to try to do a bit of this is the West. This is the Trans-Mississippi. So this is sort of the East. This is the West here. Out here is Trans-Mississippi. So in the West, trans meaning on the other side of the Mississippi. Out in the West is where we're going to focus our main sort of land efforts. The other strategic element with the South, looking at it, is the need to import, as well as potentially the need to export to pay for the imports. So controls of the ports will also be where I think we're going to decide things. So that is influencing my strategy early on in this game, just to give you an idea. Right, now, we will, this is Richmond here, the capital. If there's no Union forces within 4 hexes of it, and no Union forces within 4 hexes of Nashville, we get potential bonuses to get 1 or more of the European powers into the Civil War. So keep that in mind. So we want to not just hold Nashville, we want to make sure there's nothing around it, near enough by it, as well as here with Richmond. So we don't need to push, because there's Manassas we were talking about, Manassas Railway Junction. We don't need to push to Washington at this point. I don't think we can. But we don't really want to fall back either. So I'm going to do this, and now units that are infantry units do not have, they can't see more than 1 hex away. He can't see more than here. So you don't want to accidentally bump into too many other units. So what we're going to do is that. And I've played these opening turns a bunch of times trying to figure a lot of elements out here. I think there's somebody up there, so what we're going to do is we're going to move him to here and not get any better look. To get him here without encountering any attacks. Okay. We can move up. There are these guys who dares win, so we're going to keep back 1 brigade holding the capital, but we're going to move the other up, which will allow us. Now, so, okay. I want to take Harper's Ferry. I want to, I'm not going to necessarily try to push right next to the capital here, but I want to threaten a lot of forces, a lot of abilities to move around up here. So we're going to do this. We're going to move him into Winchester there. HQs can actually defend very well, but they cannot attack at all. And I think they're expensive to repair. So you don't want to use them as a frontline unit, but to, you know, hold a place, they are suitable. Now, we could attack there, but that won't be a good idea. Now here, Fort Hatteras, by sort of an event, will, in 2 or 3 turns, I forget exactly which, will automatically go over to the Union, and if there are any Confederate forces there, gunboats will automatically disappear. So we want to get them out, and you want them in a port right now. Okay, now, really, I don't think I have any more gunboats along the river. Or along the coast there, I should say. Now, we do have river boats. This is a river timber-clad steam vessel that has lots of thick timbers put around it that make it less vulnerable, not invulnerable, but less vulnerable to cannon fire. Trust me, especially in the black powder type era, timber can absorb, big thick timbers can absorb a lot of cannonballs, and a lot of the early ironclads just sort of kind of had timber, or kind of had iron on the sort of outside layer of a very thick amount of timber. Okay. I'm going to also, now, supplies. If they try to come through here too much, they're going to lose. Now, they could maybe supply down here, but we're going to, again, sort of risk the situation and move up. Now, also right now, Kentucky is considered a neutral country at this point for game mechanics. It is not declared for the Union or for the Confederacy. Now, we can see here, Kentucky, it's 25% towards the Union. We could, I guess, attempt to invest in diplomacy here to get them into the Confederacy or to keep them neutral. I don't know if that's quite useful for us here. The Apache are designed, I believe, to stay neutral no matter what, or actually stay hostile to both sides, I should say. Yeah, so we're not going to do any diplomacy right now, spending on that. We're going to move these units up. Now, I sort of kind of think some of these great rivers should be a little more impedance to movement of ground forces. But they are an impedance, but you can cross them anywhere, so it appears. I don't know if that. I just don't know. I live way out on the west coast here, so these rivers seem immense to me. Okay, so we're going to come up here. I can also take Springfield out here. It would be very useful because it's a key. We can. Oh no, that's not do. Go hide units. We can see not only is it like 8 points of MPP, but it's a key junction for supply coming down here. So if we can take that, we can hold a lot. I do know there is a Union unit out at Fort Baxter, so we're going to leave this regiment, the weakest units there. These guys are going to come into the hills here. We also know there's somebody up at Bolivar. Okay, we're going to attack, and he's going to move up. We're going to attack first here with him. It's going to be a roll of the dice whether this is overly useful. Okay, so now here, that would be 1 to 0 means we're likely to take damage, they're not. 1 to 1. If, like, we can get really lucky with that. That was incredibly lucky. So we're going to move our one force that we can effectively. The horse could have moved. Now that was, I think, the first time I've been able to do that. So that's an incredibly good start to the campaign. Now here, we're going to move up to here. Again, to sort of hold a strategical position here. Now we're going to have some Indian forces. These, the Choctaw are already on the Confederate side. The Indian Territories, or what becomes Oklahoma, is an interesting place at this time. Okay, so that I think is all of our movements we can do. Now, purchase or production. Production, we can see here what's in the pipeline. Now, I have been reading, and they recommend not building the manual, which is weird for me. Recommend not building. They specifically mentioned frigates because the coming of monitors and then ironclads will greatly outclass them. I am going to build a ship of a line. Why? It sort of goes back to the idea of protecting these ports and wanting to have, you will see if they're able to run too rampant with their lighter frigates around here, cutting off our commerce. I want to be able to sort of hit hard, and I figure we'll call Jefferson Davis. Figure we ought to do this. If we're going to do this, we're going to do this early. So we're going to, we have 1,000 points right now, so we're going to do this. Now, river ironclads and timberclads will become an important element, but what I think we're going to do is build 2 gunboats here. Mostly just as sort of port defenses. So, we have these 2 guys here. Pretty sure those are the ones we just built. And now it's July 62 is when the big one will come about. So that's, you know, a year from now. So that's a long time. Now we have 500 points left, so we're going to build a division. And we have 200, and I'm also going to build a, partially just for my friend Ari, a railway armored train here. So we'll purchase, and we can have one of these currently. So we're going to purchase that. That leaves us 50 MPP, which we're going to just leave that. So that's getting us built early on. Building and setup. So that's the one sort of vulnerable unit that we have here, and that they have been hit. And good. All right. So okay, our capture the Secretary of Navy, Stephen Malloy. Our capture of Norfolk Navy Yard was still fully provisioned, gives us access to another major naval construction yard. We have only limited access at success at capturing former U.S. Navy vessels. okay, when the Federals were leaving, they burnt the old frigate Merrimack, but enough of the hull and the inner machinery survived that we believe we can rebuild it, and that the Union always called it the Merrimack, but the Virginia, the first sort of ironclad, and they're calling it into a monitor. It really wasn't a monitor, but yes, okay, we're going to do that. We want that. Secretary of State Robert Coombs, we must decide which European nation will be the focus of our diplomatic efforts. The three European nations, each similar levels of military power, but also have their own unique advantages. Which of these nations, or which can be seen in the notes. Okay, yeah, this you can read the notes for more details. Here, yes, strategy guide. The more I've read, the less likely I think Britain is to come in favor of the Confederacy openly into the war and recognize the Confederacy, because Britain is, of the major expansive European powers, which by this time, 1861, really is France and Britain, because Spain lost most of its colonies in the New World and whatnot. I'm talking the major ones. I'm not talking about the Netherlands and some of the others that have, Portugal, that have colonies. But they're the most, I would say, anti-slavery. But there are strategic reasons, and they may come in. Now we're going to pick them. Here, this is you would have the ability to pick some of the others. California Governor Downey begins recruiting volunteers for the Union. Oh, good. These don't always happen the same terms. Okay. To lead Confederates in the invasion of New Mexico territory. Union warships blockading here. Haiti begins exporting cotton to the Union. Cotton is a critical resource in this time period, and had been massively coming from the American South. I'll talk some more about that later on. I'm not going to do everything in the first episode here, just okay. Looks like they'll survive this turn. I think the forts may be a bit weak for these are frigates, two frigates are able to destroy a fort. I don't. Pull back a bit. I sort of expected them to pull back. Well, that's a lot. Well, they may move other forces in. They're obviously not going to. Thought they might try to hit that unit as hard as they could. That's why this timberclad is down here protecting the fort, meaning they got to fight their way through the timberclad to get to the fort. Into our forces, good. Okay, we got a signed a treaty of friendship with an alliance with the Cherokee Nation. The Confederacy does. Some of these can happen like a turn or two later. The first two normally always happen. Brazil recognizes the Confederacy as a belligerent in the Civil War. Brazil is a slave-owning country. Up until, I was actually reading this just before this, so I knew it was. Okay, Fort Proctor defenses destroyed. Yes, we know about those. The European powers are beginning to take a more active interest in our independence. European, okay. We need to just keep them away from Richmond and Nashville. Our first cavalry unit has just arrived in El Paso, ready to march into New Mexico. Secretary of War, Leroy Pope Walker, although we've laid claim to nearly half of New Mexico territory, small volunteers force, John, insufficient. Once the Northerners are able to reinforce the garrisons, as the territory and Colorado territory beyond are home to a vast mineral resources. More serious campaign to secure it has been discussed. To effect this, Brigadier General Henry H. Sibley has been raising forces in Texas to be named the Army of New Mexico if set. The forces would deploy in El Paso in October or November 1861. If you do not wish, he can be. We're gonna. Would you like Sibley Army in New Mexico? Yes. And now come here and save this. Beginning of the turn here. Okay, so we're going to come up here, secure this city, and then move on here. I don't know that we can get to there before a Union force arrives, and I want to secure my flank. So what I'm also looking out here is, again, part of the indirect approach is trying to push out here, keeping them from being able to concentrate here. But we don't want to, shall we say, over push. I want to get this Fort Garrison immediately into our control. That'll be a secondary supply source for any units moving up here. Show dominance out here. Okay, so we've got Springfield and it's held nicely. Very good. Okay. And not so great, but still working. There we go. Keeping that supplied. Move up here as fast and quickly as possible. That. A little bit of a risky move. Let's continue to move these guys through the mountains. Okay, Harper's Ferry. Harper's Ferry. Oh, they're like really isolated. Oh, You have to watch our flanks. Yeah, those are... I think we're going to wait the turn here. You're going to come to here. You're going to move to there. You're going to move to here. See if they sort of come into the trap. Now, I really wish, and I may even make a special episode, I really wish there was just sort of reinforced all forts that need it button, so you don't forget this. Because once forts are destroyed, you can rebuild them with engineering units. So I had to look that up. But they don't, you can't just, oh, build fort here, you have to have an engineering unit there and whatnot. So, here, these guys are down to 3. We could attack and weaken them, but I'd really rather just repair them. But these guys, which are not, can fire at them and not do any damage, and fire at them and do a lot of damage. Okay, we fired both volleys. We've lost that fort there. Okay, we're going to keep moving up our river boats. Oh, we want to move up. Okay, we've taken Fort Gibson, but we're going to move. I'm going to move this way to make sure these Indians do not I don't know, decide to join the Union. They can. Like I say, I know there's a unit there, but that's just enough to keep them sort of screened in place. Okay, I think that's all we're going to move around this turn. Now we have some more points here. Now, one thing they do talk about, research is incredibly important. Getting cores eventually becomes your main fighting units. So consider that as an important element. A lot of these other techs are good, but production and industrial technologies, particularly as the Confederacy, are critical, because in the north they're just going to eventually overwhelm you too much if you do not keep that. Now I'm not going to add any more into research this turn or this early. We will do so, but I'm just trying to get everything sort of set up and going and getting it done earlier. So we're going to, I don't know, Ledbetter sounds a cool name. We're going to get an engineer unit here going, so that way I can rebuild forts wherever, but along the coast I'm particularly thinking of. And yeah, let's do another division. Bowen. No, I don't know who General Bowen is. There are a lot of Johnsons that are generals in the Confederacy, you know. So, but we'll do Bowen's division. Okay, so that's used up all of our MPP. I think, like I say, we've got all of our forts reinforced that have taken losses. Damaged the ship there a bit. Taking Springfield, which is really good. We can take Bolivar. That would sort of hold that flank pretty well. Yeah, I know they can come in here, but we got some forces coming up that way. Right. Let's let the Union have their turn. I'm going to save this just in case there's something. Once in a while I see, oh, I should have done whatever and I forgot. Okay, Stan Wati, who's a Indian, organized pro-Confederate forces in Indian Territory. He is a Confederate general. The only general in the American Civil War that is Indian. Confederate forces win the first battle of Massawa. Invasion of New Mexico begins. Union Secretary Navy forms formal ironclad board. War Department reports progress on technology development of 17 to 39%. Very good. Though the production levels are somewhat randomized on that, or your development things, it's not a set amount every turn, though there is sort of progress periodically, so they can jump ahead a little bit. Ooh, that was a good exchange. Another decent exchange. Oh wow, that's actually doing fairly well. Good situation in force. Okay, they moved up to that. Balloon units, as you saw there, do help on reconnaissance as well as cavalry. Or yes, I knew they would be coming up to there or spawning there, one of the two, however you want to put that. And we have an intelligence supported force over there. There. Okay, Mr. President, the border state of Kentucky has considerable importance for the War of Independence. Not only is it the homeland to thousands of sympathizers for our cause, but it also covers the most likely invasion routes into Tennessee and the Cumberland Rivers. Despite our best efforts, the state legislature has fallen under control of Unionists who will block any further attempt. Kentucky was a slave state. But as we can see, okay, recommendation: deploy units in Tennessee in preparation for Kentucky joining the Union. This will prepare us to declare war. Okay, most importantly, we should begin deploying units to northern Tennessee so that important cities such as Nashville are protected. It may also be a good idea to invade Kentucky ourselves so that we may secure such Paducah, I don't know, before Northern Army can occupy the state. Okay. And Rangers in San Antonio, we'll put them there. Right. Okay. Again, we can look at diplomacy here. Kentucky's at 43. We can sort of watch that to see how close they get coming in. But I think that's going to be it for this episode. I want to thank you all who made it this far. And like I say, if you haven't already, please smash the like button and, of course, subscribe if you haven't. If you guys are interested, there's so much I could talk about. The American Civil War and the American experience in the middle of the 19th century. Hope there's interest in all of this, so please post comments below on what you are interested in. Finding out about whether I talk about it in the next episode or just sometime down in the future. I would appreciate you posting that, and any other comments, please let me know. And if you got any tips on this, please post them. Thanks, everyone. See you next time for more, yes, more historical wargaming.